And I'm going also to, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marcia Traverso, if you don't know me. And with me is Catherine Benoit, Benoit Norris, that she will also moderate the meeting. And I pass the word to Air, the floor to Air, and I share the slides with the agenda for today.
Very welcome. It's such a pleasure.
Catherine, suddenly we cannot hear you very well.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, welcome.
You hear me now?
No, it's like you have a sound. So
there is an interference.
Yeah. We tried before and everything worked, but of course now not. Now, yes, very good.
Yeah. So hi everybody, welcome. We're so happy to be with all of you today and be launching the new guidelines for social LCA that were published in December 2020. So, you know, it's been a long time coming. We started developing these guidelines in 2017. So it's a huge moment of achievement and a moment to share with all of you the outcome of the work, where, you know, I'm sure a lot of you participated at various time in it as well. So we will do some introduction. We will be having a presentation about the project from Lawrence of the Life Cycle Initiative. And we will be presenting the content of the social LCA guidelines, and then we'll move into discussion with the panelists and then with all of you. So looking forward to the discussion that we will have.
Thank you, Catherine. I think that
maybe just, you know, briefly, I'm Catherine Benoit Norris. I've been a co-chair of the project with Marcia and Matthias Finkbeiner. We'll present all the other participants and members of the steering committee in just a few moments as well.
Thank you, Catherine. I introduce myself again. I'm Marcia Traverso. I'm the leader of Institute of Sustainability in Civil Engineering at the RWTH Hagen University, and I had the opportunity to co-chair this project with Catherine together. Catherine, you want to start with the agenda, and then we move. The agenda we already done. We can introduce Lawrence. Maybe Lawrence, I stop to share, and then you can share yours because you are already co-host. So you are enabled. By the way, I have your presentation here.
I think it should work. Yeah. Hopefully, you can see this. Yeah, brilliant.
Very good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcia and Catherine, for opening and welcome everyone. Thank you so much also for being here, obviously. It's so yeah, my name is Llorenç Milay Canals. I head the Secretariat of the Life Cycle Initiative, hosted in UNEP, based in France, in Paris. And just allow me a couple of slides. Before we move on to the fantastic lineup of speakers and presenters and panelists that we have today, I just wanted to introduce very quickly the context where this project sits and this publication sits, which is the Life Cycle Initiative. Hopefully, most of you are already familiar with it. The Life Cycle Initiative is a multi-stakeholder partnership that was launched in 2002 from UNEP in partnership with many others, with intention to enable the global use of life cycle knowledge in informing decision-making and policy-making at all levels. The vision that we have, which you can see here in the slide, is that we can contribute to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, but also the Paris Agreement and other important goals in the 2030 Agenda, we can achieve these goals faster and more efficiently with life cycle thinking. And the reason is that with life cycle thinking, we can target the key drivers for impact, so the hotspots. And we can also address potential trade-offs that happen between goals, between environmental impacts, between environmental and social issues. So by addressing these potential trade-offs, we can achieve the goals more efficiently. So in order to do this, the initiative builds on these three main programs that you see in colors here. So at the level of technical and policy advice, which is essentially where we bring tools and knowledge that kind of help in really informing the decisions, the policies when they are being made. So this technical and policy advice is really where, as we say, where the rubber hits the road. And in this area, we're certainly bringing life cycle tools and approaches to big processes of policy and decision making globally. So we're really influencing those decisions. But obviously, in order to do that, we need the enabling conditions for LCA, for life cycle thinking, to be more applied, and that's where we work on capacity development, and certainly in knowledge generation, life cycle knowledge generation, and maintaining or facilitating the access to this knowledge. And this knowledge includes both the traditional life cycle assessment data, but also impact indicators and the assessment of impacts, both environmental, which is probably an area that many of you also know, environmental impact indicators and the consensus building that the initiative has been working on, but also importantly, and that's the focus of today, the assessment of social impacts. So that's the focus of today's webinar, obviously, is the work that the initiative has been doing since the first guidelines in 2009, which have now been reviewed, revised thoroughly by this great group of experts that you will be hearing of today, and by many of you present, of course. So it's obviously critical to have social elements alongside environmental and economic ones when making decisions, and that's exactly what we can achieve thanks to these guidelines. So obviously, before I hand the microphone back, I always want to acknowledge the significant contribution that our funding partners do. So here you have them. Hopefully you can recognize many. And we thank, before we move on to the webinar, we thank the funding partners of the Life Cycle Initiative once more for helping them to achieve what obviously we wouldn't be able to achieve without them. So thank you very much, and back over to you, Marcia and Catherine.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for the introduction, and a huge thank you for all the support that the Life Cycle Initiative has provided to the project throughout since 2018. So
okay.
Without...
The agenda is already there, yes. Sorry, I need a couple of minutes.
Great. So without further introduction, we will start presenting the content of the social LCA guidelines. So like I said in the introduction, we start, it's been a long time coming. We had first guidelines published in 2009, and already in 2015 we were seeing signs that there were a lot of progress being made in terms of methods, and the context was changing significantly. And in 2017 we decided through the Social LCA Alliance to start the development of revised social LCA guidelines. The first 2009 guidelines provided a framework for social LCA that complemented the environmental LCA ISO 14040 and 14044 standards, but also was highlighting all the differences in the methods that were not necessary to integrate social impacts into the framework of life cycle assessment. It also proposed a list of social topics, of social subcategories that should be used when conducting a social LCA. So the context that changed in, before 2009, probably around, 15 journal articles had been published on social LCA. Since 2009, hundreds, even thousands of articles and studies have been published. So a lot of development had been made in the community, and there was a strong need to make changes in the guidelines, account for the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, the sustainable development goals, and also provide a lot more specific guidance on impact assessment. So a group of us came together, including researchers and academics from many regions of the world to set the process to conduct this revision. So Marzia, Matthias, and I have been co-chairing the project, but we had the help of Elizabeth, Gabriela, Sonia, Sarah, Sabrina, Marcus, and Thomas to help us deliver on this very ambitious goal. And everybody has been very active throughout. We've also involved from the start a large number of stakeholders. We also set up an advisory committee, and we benefited from the support of the Life Cycle Initiative Secretariat. We had working groups from the start in 2018 with contributors from 20 countries representing most regions of the world, and that provided their time and expertise to provide first drafts of the main sections of the revised guidelines. The advisory committee was made up of stakeholders of different types, so academics, the industry, we had NGOs represented, and people from different backgrounds that provided their insights to help us structure and deliver the project. We had a very ambitious calendar, and of course it was pre-COVID, so we were able to meet in person at various times to discuss the drafts, to improve on the draft, and to get to next versions. So these are pictures of us in Pescara discussing the first draft, and here discussing the second draft in Paris in 2019, almost 2 years ago now. In 2020, we had a public consultation process where we received over 500 comments on version 3 of the revised guidelines from 50 participants and from all geographies and gender. And again, participation from academics, NGOs, consultants, and in the private sector. Those comments were integrated into a final version, which is the version that we are presenting today. So what did we wanted to achieve through the revision of the guidelines? First, we wanted to expand the audience to include not only experts in environmental life cycle assessment, but also managers and experts in human rights. We wanted to focus on capability development and making sure that after reading these guidelines, potential users were able to start on their journey applying social life cycle assessment. We wanted to cover all the new methodological developments and recognize a plurality of established approaches. So we didn't want to pick and choose. We wanted to provide a menu of what approaches were suited to conduct, different types of social LCA, meet different goals. We wanted to position social LCA in the current context, and also develop areas where we had, minimum guidance in the 2009 guidelines, including life cycle impact assessment and interpretation. We also wanted to integrate social organizational life cycle assessment to extend the focus from social LCA of products to social LCA of organization as well. So the scope was really looking at, so what do we need to do for product social LCA, and what do we need to do for social organizational life cycle assessment? And is there any differences in terms of what needs to be accomplished when we want to do one or the other?
Should I continue, Catherine, or do you want to continue? As you want.
Yeah, you can continue on, Marcia.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, as already Catherine mentioned, one of the new aspect that we integrate in the life cycle assessment, in social life cycle assessment, is the organizational level. So when you start, so that's, I mean, if you want to follow step by step the procedure, that's the first choice you have to make it, or at least you have to define in terms of scope if you want to proceed in terms of organizational level or in terms of product level. And then once you decide that, you go through all the life cycle of phases of the product or the value chain stages, and then more in detail you can define which are the goals. In the guidelines, because I mean the main point, as I already Catherine said, the main point of these guidelines was to harmonize, somehow put together all the experience that has been done in the last 10 years. So it was also necessary to define clearly the terminology. Because of course we are all scientists, no one has the exclusive knowledge for social LCA, lots of people working on it, but at least we need to find a common language. So that's why we gave also in the guidelines, we spend a lot of time to work on it, to clearly define up to main concept like social footprint, social handprint, materiality assessment, social hotspot, social risk, also the differences among these two concepts, and the social impact. We work a lot also to improve as much as possible the readability of the guidelines. Not that it was not before, of course not, but before was clearly the audience was clearly an expert, a user of LCA, so we could avoid to specify what an LCA means, what impact assessment means. But in this case, because we want to really reach also the people from the human resources, for example, that often are involved in collecting data for social life cycle assessment, they are responsible actually for the most of them in the big company. So we want to reach also them, and that's why we have to clearly define several concepts. This slide gives you the path how we can proceed, an overview, I would say, of how you proceed step by step through the methodology to reach the social life cycle assessment, to apply social life cycle assessment. Nothing new for who is already involved in the topic, but the main effort that's been done in this case was to integrate, make it consistent, the message, try to catch all the innovative aspect, because as we say, that there were more than 1,000 papers in the last 3 years. I don't know how many papers I actually was responsible as an editor. So there are lots of implementation. That learning from that, we try to summarize and to explain and to integrate in this methodology. So we have goal and scope, of course, we have to define which product, organization, clearly also be inspired from what has been done. Then with, if you are focusing which is your goal, so if you are focusing more at cradle to gate or in the design phase, then you can proceed then, and usually, as always is in LCA, you have to already decide in goal and scope if you want to proceed more with a pathway, a pre-impact pathway with a type 1 and type 2, or with a type 1 reference scale. We clearly, I mean, there was nothing, as I said, there was already written from other authors what type 1 and type 2, but of course here we clearly consistently integrating and explain step by step. Then we also make lots of efforts in the inventory. There you will see, because that was also an important steps to explain how we proceed with inventory. Depends on the different goal and scope that you have. Then impact assessment, also in this case, how you can proceed. In this case, of course, as always for guidelines, we gave a spectrum of possible methodology. In particular, when you talk about reference scale, nothing is mandatory as a suggestion, but to give a clarity at least in this part. And then we have the last part, interpretation, communication, and communication actually is a new chapter where we work to, you will see a couple of slides at the end, to try to elaborate how we could make more consistent the communication part of the social impact. These are the stakeholder categories and subcategories, and stakeholder categories and subcategories, impact subcategories, where you see in bold the ones that have been added thanks to the wonderful, very important discussion that we had. We could have also in presence in Pescara and after in Paris. So there we really work to understand what was missing before in terms of what is should be a priority, should be also integrated in the stakeholder categories. For example, we have a new stakeholder categories, children, because the discussion was clearly, okay, we want to say social LCA, we want to improve the well-being, the social condition of human being. And we, of course, in terms of sustainability, we talk about future generation as our focus, and we are talking about children only when they are working in. So I take this citation from Matthias Finkbeiner, the co-chair. That actually was a good comment, a good way of thinking. That's why we thought it was very important to insert also children. And of course, there we developed together with all the people that work. You see the names in the guidelines. They work with us. We developed the method. We developed the subcategories, and then we will arrive also the methodological sheet that will be published together with the companion document for the pilots. Then the data collection, I mean, also there we make lots of efforts to make it clear which could be the different sources where you depends with what you want to achieve. If you want to achieve more an hotspot analysis, or you want to achieve social life cycle assessment, so how you can proceed with generic data and how you can proceed with the site-specific data. So that was clearly explained, and it's clearly explained in the guidelines. Then, of course, lots has been done also related to the social life cycle impact assessment. And as I said, we define again, make it clearly what we meant with, for example, with social life cycle impact assessment. For example, any understanding, evaluating the magnitude and significance of a potential social impact, but also can be applied to either analyze current past potential social impact or associated with the system, or to forecast the future potential social impact. So that was a status, at least to clarify what we are meaning with the social life cycle impact assessment. For social life cycle assessment, impact assessment, as you know, we can proceed as with type 1, that is more going to the reference scale approach, or with type 2, that is more impact pathway approach, that is more similar to what we are used if we work with LCA. But that still needs further. I mean, we have a couple of example subcategories that can be applied. We have methodology, but they are not yet complete, as it is even still for LCA. So still the research has to going on this area. At least we status where we are. Then these are the steps that you have to do. So that, as I said, for who is already user of the LCA, or at least a research in social LCA, you see it's easy to, I mean, it's nothing that you don't know, but that was important to specify step by step to support as much as possible the newcomers, the new people that wants to proceed in implementing social life cycle assessment. So we have clearly from goal and scope, where you decide which kind of assessment, which kind of approach you want, which kind of stakeholders to be already there. Then you proceed, which kind of process, and then you proceed to the inventory. So according to what you decide there, you have data collection, and then of course the impact assessment, and finally we can also have a weighting. It's an optional, it's not a standard, it's not obligatory and mandatory steps, but still you can still weighting among the subcategories, and then we have a final interpretation. We clearly state, I mean, more and more the differences between type 1 and type 2. So try to give also there clearly steps to proceed in apply both, and also some example on it. Another important point that we clearly state in the the guidelines is the positive impact. Well, that is defined as a benefit from the product life cycle that is generate when is a positive contribution to the improvement of human well-being is generated from the product life cycle. But there is, of course, a different way to distinguish. At least we can identify or group at least three different types of positive impact. We can have a positive impact in terms of positive social performance that going beyond the business as usual. Then we have a type B, positive impact, social impact through the presence of that company or that specific product. And then we have a further positive impact through the product utility. So that was also clearly stated and defined in the guidelines. Last part, as I said, for in terms of news, I would say innovative part for the guidelines are the ones related to the communication. That's a start from the publications that we had together with UNEP a couple of years ago, where we already, together with Catherine, where we give more a status of the art. It was a white paper. And we give some next step, a suggestion to how to proceed. And here we refer to it, we go more in details and try to define which could be the next steps actually for better integrate the communication part at the end of a social life cycle assessment. One possibility is surely a business-to-business approach. The business-to-business approach would be like we had for the environmental product declaration. In this case, we should be social product declaration. So in this case, we clearly refer to the type 3 labels that it's not where we also have to make efforts to define the product category rules related to the social LCA of that product, related to the product categories. And then, but that could be, but still remain, that is a very important step, but it stays business to business. If we want to that include, of course, the consumers who is not familiar with the social impact, social life cycle assessment, then we have to go more in the direction of business to consumers. But there, I mean, there I think that we need at least more steps to do. Instead, the social product declaration could be, I think, next steps, very close. So we could start to think about it more in practice. For business to consumers, I think we can be inspired, of course, from what is already there, like a fair trade, a good wave. But for including more social impact, more we have to think something more elaborated. There could be something similar to type 1 eco-label, where you address specific criteria and then you put just a label and the people recognize the label. You catch mainly the best in terms of social impact, or go more in something that is type 3 but still can be read from the consumers. We are not, I mean, we finished with the guidelines and we are, of course, we finished with the guidelines in terms of, we are very happy to conclude, to publish, but never finish, never work on these topics. And actually the next step would be finalize also the road testing, because I mean, as you know, in parallel we have the project in general was always planned in 2 phases, and the second phase started already in November 2019. Because we want to implement the guidelines as soon as possible, get the feedback from the business world, and we will collect all the studies and the report in a compendium document that will be published hopefully in next July. We are already on track. I mean, even with the COVID, we managed to work on it. These are, I want to thank you all the 9 pilots that they fund actually also this project. They participate. They are really motivated. They made lots of efforts, in particular now with COVID, to be on track with this project. These are the pilots participants. So we're 9. Today you will have the opportunity to hear from a few of them, the ones that are in blue. We keep, I mean, we will organize surely further conferences, webinar, because I mean, actually we did already a couple, and we will continue now more and more on it. So we will have the opportunity to present all of the others that were not, they're not going to speak today. I want to also give you maybe what's next. And of course, Catherine, then feel free to compliment me when I forget something. Next step is surely training modules, that development that we are going to start. I think there is one starting in a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And we will make this regularly. We are also try to, we are working in parallel on methodological sheets to finalize them, and I hope that they will be out in April. That's my target. And in the same time, we work, as I said, in parallel with the pilots to finalize them to the next July. There is also, of course, as I said, we want to advance in communication. So the next would be try to develop a social product declaration. That will be definitely a next step. And Last but not least, but not official yet, unfortunately, is maybe the opportunity to develop an ISO standard on social life cycle assessment. I mean, we work already there, but we will. I cannot. I mean, it's not there, not yet official. So I hope that it can be official as soon as possible. We will be informed, and we will be also launch the news from the newsletter of the Life Cycle Initiatives.
Maybe just one thing to add, Marcia, is that so the English version of the guidelines was launched in December,
correct.
but we will see a French, a Dutch, and an Italian version, I understood, of the guidelines that will be launched in 2021. So we would like to offer more translation. So if ever there are interest in the community to provide or help fund translation in other languages, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. That's I definitely forget. There are a couple of questions I see from the
More
chat.
comments.
More comments, yes, on the training. Yes, we will, of course, we will, as a Social LCA Alliance and supported by the Life Cycle Initiatives, we will make it a training. We are starting, and we will. I mean, you will be informed as soon as we have you in the list. I collect your emails, so you will be informed once we have more information on it. So back to our agenda. Sorry, I need a minute. I don't see if there are questions. Maybe someone wants to, yeah, there is one. Okay, George, thanks. No, actually the new methodological sheet will be a revision of the ones before to make also more consistent. And of course there will be the new ones that have not been presented yet. Other comments from the audience?
Yeah, somebody.
Question from Amy.
Amy wanted to know if our perspective on hybrid approaches in social LCA in general. And my question to Amy is, what do you mean by hybrid approaches? You mean a mix of economic input output with more like site specific, or do you mean social LCA applied with environmental life cycle assessment?
I mean, you can switch on your microphone if you need.
Can I be heard now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you for taking the question. And just as a starting point, just interested in knowing about hybrid perspectives in terms of, borrowing from type 1, borrowing from type 2, particularly in my case, focusing on agri-food production systems, but really focusing on cradle to gate or to primary processor gate, and focusing much more as the primary stakeholder on the farmers, on workers themselves. But in that context, and trying to make the LCA or the social LCA very context specific, borrowing a little bit from type 1 and type 2. And that's something that I didn't see in the updated guidelines, and was quite interested in learning more about how to do that, because there are examples now in the literature. So I'm just curious to know what the perspectives are as we start some discussion. Thank you.
I think that is something that is being explored and implemented in the pilots. So Marcia, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, in the pilots, we have example of applying both. We are using both approach in some case. combine type 1 and type 2, sure. I mean, that's it's important. Actually, we also realized the farmer has a particular, it's a particular case, I would say, a particular stakeholder. That's why you see that also added in the methodological sheet as a subcategories in the workers, because we realized that there we have to identify specific at least specific indicators. So, because of course the subcategories it's met, but still how you express that value at that specific aspect, probably you need a different, just a classical example, salary, it's not really a salary if they are farmers, so it's more revenues. So how you really end with it, and that's I mean, that's we will handle more with the compendium document and with the methodological sheet.
Okay, great. Thank you for that response.
Welcome. There is a further question. I mean, we cannot answer to all of you. I would then one more, and then I keep the question for at the end, because at the end we will again a session for question after the presentation of the pilot. But let's keep one more that I saw that was on the GRI. What about integrating with the GRI or other reporting standard on impact reporting? I mean, that's a good question. The point is that actually they are, the aspect that we are considering are often the same. The point is how you collect the data. And actually when you would go to Solca, you go to more at the organizational level, then of course JRI is I mean the reporting can be I mean can be the same indicators. So that's is a part. That's why the necessity also to integrate Solca, because as we know, Solca often is a key to enter in communication with company to attract them to start, because they are more confident to work at corporate level. And then depends in which situation, which kind of company is, then they need to scale down, because probably they produce more product with a different supply chain, with different country involved, and then makes sense to go to a product level. Okay, so I would move, I mean, I see the chat, so we can talk to the chat afterwards, if you don't mind. And the next would be presenting the speakers that are with us. We have four. We keep four of the pilots. So we have Laji Tikana from International Copper Association. We have Kevin from the JAPFA. Then we have from the Confetti Pelino, Kevin Monteiro from JAPFA. Then we have Carlo Alfonso Pelino from Pelino company. And then we have Dolores Calle from University of Cuenca. For all of them. Why we choose them? I choose them because they represent a big company, big association, and then we have but big company also in Indonesia, in Asia. Then we have waste management in Cuenca. So we catch the diversity that we have in the pilots. Of course, the other also very important. I just want to give an idea of the difference, the differences about problematic that we have in terms challenges, never problem, challenges we have in applied social LCA, but also how much we can learn and which is the benefit from this pilot. Starting from, okay, so again, Laji Tikana, International Copper Alliance, I ask you to short introduce yourself and give shortly what is your case study, your pilot. We cannot hear you.
I see. Okay, so now, so
Good.
thank you, Marcia, for your introduction, and it's an interesting task or achievement, and also thanks to the Life Cycle Initiative. And so Laji Tikana is my name. I'm working on behalf of the International Copper Association and responsible for the life cycle data management and over sustainable issues linked to the copper production. Mainly copper and copper product, of course, not only the copper production, but also the product side, which is linked to the copper industry. So we don't use to cover the use part because it's so diverse that we cannot cover it. So we leave that to the downstream industry. So our main interests here was to ensure that this social aspect is well covered when it comes to the copper supply chain, because all know that the mining part is viewed in a critical manner by the outside world, and that was one of our big interests, to ensure that when the methodology exists, it can be applied to our system, and to understand better if it works, and if so, how, and if not, what can we bring into this process to make it better.
Thank you, Laji. Thank you for your introduction. I come back to you with a couple of questions more afterwards. The next, I would ask Kevin Monteiro to introduce himself and also why JAPFA is part and what he's doing with us.
Okay, thanks, Marcia. Actually, congratulations on launching this revised guideline to Marcia, Catherine, and the whole team. I'm sure a lot of you are part of today's meeting, so congratulations. I'm sure it's the product of very good work that you've put through over a long time. Okay, I'm the road tester for chicken farmers. So essentially, JAPFA is a vertically integrated poultry producer. So we make chicken feed, we make day-old chicks, which basically we breed babies. And the final step is we actually grow out the broiler as well. And that's done in commercial farms. Now, in those commercial farms, we actually work together with contract farmers. And the reason why we were motivated to actually join this pilot project was that we always felt that through our partnership with these contract farmers, we are making a contribution in terms of community and society, in terms of training and improving the skill sets of commercial farmers. So I think that's what drew us to this project.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. And we learn a lot applying this social LCA together with JAPFA, in particular for small farmers. So it's thank you to be with us. I would invite Carlo Alfonso Pellino. I don't see, but I see the
yes, he's there.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Carlo Alfonso Pellino, and I am the Quality Department Manager of the Confetti Pellino company, and also a co-owner. Our company is the oldest producing sugared almonds, called in Italian confetti, exactly since 1783. In fact, we are also a member of the Enochians, an association that brings together family-run companies that have been operating for at least 200 years. I studied business administration at the D'Annunzio University in Pescara. So I earned a specialist degree in the eco-management, and I had the opportunity to deepen the aspects of social life cycle assessment during the course of theory and technique of quality, especially the principles and guidelines for their own editorial staff. The Confetti Pelino company is based in Sulmona, which is a small town of 25,000 inhabitants in the center of Italy. So one of the main motivations that prompt us to conduct the analysis was to understand the influence of Confetti Pelino on the local community. As we also have a museum of confectionery and technology, we contribute to local tourism, hosting thousands of visitors every year. And in addition, having 27 employees, we offer a valid, albeit moderate, economic contribution in the area where we operate. Then another important motivation was the sensitivity of the company towards recent sustainability issues, which prompt us to seek more information on the entire supply chain on which the company is an integral part, and also understand the social impacts generated upstream and downstream of confectionery production.
Thank you, Carlo. Yes, that your example is an example of small enterprises, but very important, significant for the area, for the local.
Yeah, for our area, yes.
And confetti is, I mean, one of the more important candy for all the wedding and
yeah, for ceremonies. Yeah,
yes,
very
ceremony in general. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, Dolores, please, can you introduce your case study, yourself, of course, and your pilots?
Yes, thank you, Marcia. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dolores Sucochañay. I am a professor of the University of Cuenca in Ecuador, and together with my team, we are carrying out the social LCA pilot project about the recycling system of Cuenca. And we are putting a special emphasis on recyclers, or the waste speakers, we call here recyclers, because they are the weakest stakeholder into the whole systems. And however, although they contribute a lot to the waste management and the environment, they are exposed to inadequate working condition and discrimination. So we are applying this methodology in order to get and to generate information in order to be able to help improve their conditions.
Thank you, Dolores. Yes, that's also important because they are informal workers often, so that we catch a completely different perspective also in this pilot. But we go a bit more in details, starting with you, Dolores. So give me a bit what is the what you think, first of all, benefit and challenge that you have right now in this implementation, and maybe about data, how we what's the necessity in this regard.
Okay, thank you. Well, the main I will start with the benefits. So, and okay, of course, the benefit is that this pilot provide the information about the social impact that we had into the recyclers and also to the community. But the main challenge, of course, is the point that you mentioned, that we are implementing the social LCA methodology into a system, a service, a recycling service that have an informal component. the recyclers are informal workers. So we had to adapt some indicators, some part of the reference scales to that situation. So apart from the recycler's case, other contexts present similar characteristics here in Ecuador. So we think that this effort that we had in order to adapt the indicators to the informal sectors, to the informal work, can be a benefit for other environments. Another challenge is also regarding to the data. There are a lot of limitations to the data, especially for the social indicators. We have a lot of information, but those information are spread, and we had to gather information via primary sources. So we had to put a lot of work and time in order to collect primary data. And into our pilot, recyclers live dispersed across to the city and have different recycling routes. So the coordination and the logistics before the survey implementation require a significant effort. And also the secondary data was collected, but I said there was limited information. And we only get secondary data for generic indicator measure. So we are working most with the primary data in order to assess the impact assessment.
Thank you, Dolores. Yeah, that's, I mean, somehow answer to the question that was about data before. Already, Catherine in the chat, Catherine already answered about the opportunity to have open sources database. I mean, it would be great, but as also Catherine underlined, collecting data need time and work, and to at least have a really quality data with certain level of quality. So that cannot be done without funding. And also we have to be aware that social LCA catch often criticality, not necessarily, because as we said, we can be also positive impact, of course, but can also be a critical point of a company that they don't want to share. And but the point is that we need really to push as much as possible to have a primary data. But still, I think that the first step is to have more and more data in the database that we have currently now, the open source, even we have not managed open source in environmental LCA. I don't think we will have open source right now with social LCA. There is a question. I mean, you can also make a question for the pilots if you want. I try to connect both. I want to make in the meantime maybe another question to Kevin. Kevin, what is what is your point of view? I mean, for this, what you learn from this, implementation. What benefit you get from it, and of course still, I mean, what are the challenge?
Okay, I think challenges and benefits. Okay, benefits, I think, as I said, we always felt that our work with contract farmers was in some way improving their economic well-being, and sometimes we can measure that on an informal basis, in that, for example, our farmers might have the best TV set or motorbike in the village he lives in. So he's doing well economically, but I think it's more than that, right? I mean, it's more like, you know, if we establish or improve training for our farmers, we're improving their operations, we are improving their economic performance, but we are making their whole life a little bit better, including their community, right? So I think the social LCA guidelines and this project we're in will provide a structured way of thinking on how you actually measure the social impact. it's all well and good to say that you believe you're doing good things, but it's great if somebody can come along and measure it and even, you know, compare it in future. So, you know, I think we try to not only look at the contract farmers as stakeholders, but also we try to engage our employees, the community, et cetera, So this process also allows us to engage with many stakeholders to understand, you know, how they feel about that particular operation that we're running. I mean, you know, with that understanding, I think we can kind of identify hotspots for the negative stuff that we actually come up with, and also identify parts where we've been successful in actually developing the agricultural sector deep within, you know, Indonesia. I mean, we have in Jaffa something like 9,600 contract farmers. So we touch a lot of people's lives, and a lot of small economic benefits are actually spread throughout the whole country. So I think to some extent, you know, I think it allows us to identify the key success factors and also look at how we can actually improve those that perhaps when we get feedback from particular parts of the stakeholder community that we can learn to improve. At the end, the final benefit of all of this, of course, is that we can improve our sustainability reporting because we're a listed company. So we have been doing sustainability reporting, and more importantly, I think as a company that goes out to seek funding from you know, investors, because we're a listed company, through the equity markets, or even loans, whether it is in terms of international bonds or banks, I think more and more relevance is being placed on sustainability today. And I think that will shift towards social sustainability as well. I've seen parts of it already appearing. And what it means is that could be a tangible benefit of applying social LCA guidelines, and, you know, trying to assess how your impact is on a number of stakeholders. And hopefully it will be beneficial to the company in the long run. So I see that as all the benefits. If you want me to go in challenges, I think the challenges come from the people that are actually in depth in this project, right? And I mean, in just setting the focus and scope, you know, it's been pretty tough. I think Mazia is also part and parcel of this project, along with Jessica, helping us to understand how we put together this thing. But you know, the stakeholders, just defining stakeholders is already difficult, and how that correlates to the overall business impact, the profitability, productivity. Then when you look at the second part, which is the life cycle inventory, you know, we had to try to formulate questions that were relevant for each stakeholder party. So our sample size is something like 800, and so it's an ambitious, I think, database that we are trying to collect, made up of a variety of different stakeholders. And just formulating the questions, I think, you know, to actually build an inventory that kind of makes sense took quite a while. And then obviously, you know, COVID and movement restrictions didn't quite help the process as well, because we were hoping to be sitting in front of a lot of people, you know, interviewing a lot of people, and that the movement restrictions have made that process quite challenging, actually, in getting that out, because it's not an easy thing, you know, to go through a questionnaire, and it's always much better face to face rather than trying to do it, you know, over the phone or over medium. So I think that was a major challenge. Now, when it comes to impact assessment, I think we're just in that process, right? And I think, yeah, that's also tough. You don't have many references on this, so you're trying to work out, you know, what is your position? Are we good? Are we not good? What should be good? What shouldn't be good? How are we going to get that? You know, that kind of thing. So I think it's been an interesting process, and yeah, I think we're happy to be part of this.
Thank you, Kevin. I like the fact that you are with the social LCA. You want to improve the life of your stakeholder. That somehow you see this as a way. And of course, there is still lots of challenge. There was a question about, because you said, for example, elaborate on the questionnaire to get the data is a challenge. There was a question before from the chat that would say you give availability of the questionnaire. We didn't have done that for the guidelines. Also, because I have to be honest, it's not so easy to have a general questionnaire. Because even we have done at least a framework, a first step of indicator that could be collected that we gave to all the pilots, at least to start from somewhere, according to the subcategories, of course. But still, I mean, how you put the question strongly depends on the context, on the local context, on the case study. So I don't think really that that we can really prepare a general questionnaire. What we have done already is with the methodological sheet, we try to stress as much as possible, give an example, a starting point where you think on the topics and on the indicator that at least the minimum you should try to have, but that's it. Then there, it depends on the availability, depends on the... and I would say also maybe just it's not because the social LCA is more difficult than the others. It's just because as all the methodology that are available in the world, you make a difference when you learn and you work with it. I mean, experience, we cannot pass the experience. That's the reason why we can pass the knowledge. We try with the guidelines, with the compendium document, our experience, but still you have to start to work to really understand what are the problematic there and how you can end with it. One thing more to Laji. Laji, your case is even for some reason also there are other challenges because we have a different things there. You have an organization with different company, and you focus on trying to understand what are the main role that can play social LCA in the what you think could be the next step. So what you think could help. Do you have some suggestion for us for this until you apply? So what was maybe something that could be improved? That you are mute.
Sorry. So we were trying to approach the topic from a generic scale. And then we realize that this is really with a limited result and satisfaction. So therefore, you can't come to the end without going down to individual company data collection. So that seems to be something we have learned from this process, and nevertheless, it should be possible also from a I would say from a family or industrial sector point of view to address the issue, because when going to talk to a region or even to a country, and you have different companies, so then you need to present one figure, and I think that's a challenge, definitely, because you didn't fix how to solve this. And I see here a big challenge to overcome this this aspect.
Thank you, Laji. Yes, sure. I think that's underline the necessity to have primary data as much as possible. Of course, you still have an overview. I mean, you still have the hotspot. You still have what can be the risk. It would be the hotspot. At least that helps you to focus on specific topics and not collect data for the entire subcategories. That is a very big challenge. But still, I mean, it's important to have at least the company perspective, the company on board that are involved in the product life cycle. That I think is also because we are still, I mean, I don't like to say learning, because I mean, 20 years of learning started to be annoying. It's not really learning. It's about to really push more and more this topic as a priority and the necessity to have data on it. Because at the end, it's often this fact that we have the database already there that allows you to work, but still, I mean, we need more efforts in this direction. Question, I mean, I saw there was a question about the handbook of product social impact assessment, that I suppose that you mean the PCI from the roundtable social metrics. Yeah, I know that there is a new version. We work, I mean, the roundtable is one of the pilots with us, and we I mean, we are working parallel, and in the version of the guidelines, we integrate also the referencing point that has been suggested from the handbook. So we try to, of course, to work together. We are talking about the same things. We talk about social impact assessment. Of course, the roundtable stays more at the referencing level, so more at the qualitative level. It's a choice. We try to also to push also for the pathway, for impact pathway, for the type 2. And maybe we have still time. Actually, we could open the discussion also to the, no, maybe just one last question from my side to Dolores. Lessons learned until now.
Wow, lesson learned. We have learned a lot. First, that the implementation of this kind of methodology that have some steps and it's quite systematic is challenge. So we need first we need to master the methodology, and then we have to apply it and adapt to the context. I guess that's one of the main challenges. For that, I was listening that if we could have a standard survey or something like that, I don't think that it's possible. We always need to adapt to the context. The other challenge is that you need the collaboration of the different stakeholders. For us was really important to have on board of this pilot of the EMAC, which is the municipal cleaning company here in Cuenca. And also we have to work a lot in order to get on board to the recyclers per se, because I said they already give a lot of information, they already fill a lot of survey, so they don't want to give another one. And to be able to implement the whole methodology, we need a lot of information if we want to cover the most of the indicators. So that was challenging. And the last point, I guess, is that we need to find a way how to put the information in an easy way, in order that we can give back to the recyclers, because if it's important for the other stakeholders, I guess the information is most important for them. So we have to find the easy way to put very clear the information in order that they are able to use them for their social recognition and their negotiation process. I guess those are the most important lessons that we learn.
Thank you, Dolores. Thank you. I have a question actually in the chat from to you, actually, to the pilots in general. Which kind of professionals could help the process, the implementation of social LCA? So that's, I mean, what can be further help? What do you think?
About sorry,
professionals that can help further expertise that could help the implementation of social LCA?
Well, our team is it's a multidisciplinary team actually. We have environmental engineer. I am a sociologist. We have a expert on economics. So I guess if we want to apply this kind of methodology, we need to have this multidisciplinary view, this multidisciplinary approach. Yes.
Thank you, Dolores. Other point from other, maybe Jessica, do you want to also say something about it? Jessica is following very close JAPFA case study.
I would say it's a great experience, Maria. It's an exciting experience actually. I learned so much from the social LCA guidelines. Yeah, although there are things still we need to do, but it really opens up an opportunity, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. And Jessica, you can give also your point of view in terms of teams. Which kind of teams you need to apply for social life cycle assessment? Which kind of expertise?
That will be interesting. We actually work hand in hand together with the teams at JAPFA, yeah, especially with the teams with commercial in the commercial farms, because we need to understand the nature of the work and the different types of stakeholders that we were working with is quite fascinating. So Pak Kevin mentioned that we have to engage with stakeholders, different types of stakeholders, how to ask the right question. That's very, very tricky for us. It's we may want to answer just a simple question maybe in our inventory, but the way we have to formulate the question is the trickiest part, and in the end we had we have stumbled with many kinds of the difficulties, yeah, especially with the farmers, yeah, Pak Kevin, yeah, that nobody wants to pick up the phone or to answer us.
So practical things.
Yes, indeed. So we have to call up with the people from JAPFA team and say, hey, why is this guy is not answering our phone all the time? And we message and everything because simply they are afraid. Who are we asking them to ask for an interview? It was agreed before with JAPFA as well. We want to be the ones who do the interview, to be independent. Because we're afraid that if JAPFA people is going to interview the contract farmers, and then they'll say, oh yeah, everything is good. Yeah, okay, everything is good. So we want to have that kind of independence. So that's why we take on the role. But you know, that kind of thing, like who is this person trying to get to us, and it's quite interesting. Also with the workers of the farmers as well, nobody wants to pick up our phone because they're afraid, oh, my boss is going to be, you know, upset with me if I answer this and that, maybe. Yeah. So it's quite an experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I want to make a question also to Carlo, but I don't see him. I'm not sure that is still. No, yes, he's here.
Ron?
Yeah, Carlo, you have a completely different perspective because it's as we said, in your case, a small company. What was your challenge? I mean, what of course benefit and challenge in term or lessons learned? What you prefer?
Okay. First of all, about benefits. Of course, the first benefit is to expand our knowledge about the impacts generated by our work. In fact, we have already applied the LCA, so the environmental analysis on our company. So we can expand our knowledge from environmental to social aspects. And other benefits are that we obtained from social life cycle assessment an accurate analysis of our supply chain, and also a greater awareness in the choice of partners and suppliers, selecting those ones who are mindful to sustainability issues. And then we obtain information that allowed us to identify internal improvements, and so apply improvements. And this can be a challenge for our future. Regarding to other challenges, there's first of all the intention to improve the performance of the company in terms of sustainability and improving the processes, our processes. So we would like to extend the analysis which was carried out just on almond confetti to other company products, in order to find more information and have a broader picture of the social impacts that we generate. Another challenge is to speed up the analysis processes and obtain more accurate results. And this maybe could be obtained, for example, by developing specific databases related to the specific area and to raw materials that we use. And this would allow us to improve the quality of the data and also of the analysis.
Thank you, Carlo. Thank you. I have just one. I saw several questions, but people are chatting. That's interesting from all the webinar that I now see. Often there are two conferences: the ones online where we are speaking, and the ones on chat. And so often they are running somehow in parallel. There was a question for there was how you. I have to find again. How you can exactly how you can they can make this question, how you can avoid once the company collect their own data, how do you can prevent BS? That's I would answer that's not just the case of social LCA, that's the case of every assessment that you do, every environmental assessment. There are ways to check. Of course, there are documents to verify. You ask a specific document to prove the result. That is usually the duty of consultancies, there is a consultancies, verifiers, there is a verifier. And one thing is very important, that is also very strongly stressed in the guidelines, transparency. I mean, to avoid BS, you have to definitely be transparent, to ask with a report that transparently report where it come from this data. And that's come to the discussion of JI, for example, a report or sustainability report in general. If as a company has usually have a sustainability report, they can refer to that's already published. So, I mean, there is a way. Of course, there is also always a way to lie, but that's nothing to do with the methodology, has to do with the people, and then happening anything. So that doesn't stop the fact that the methodology is valid or not. We have, I don't know if we have a further, I just have to check if there are, I think, yeah, exactly. You don't want to, but you, there is one last question. Catherine answer. Catherine is very, answer to the chat. I don't know if someone wants to further comments, we have a last 4 minutes, 3 minutes, then we can conclude. Catherine, I would like if you close the session at the end. I don't know if we have...
May I ask for a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, Davide, of course.
I'm trying to follow you because, as you can imagine, in this moment I'm in office, so I have so many stuff to work. But I'm wondering if you have your experience about different kind of companies. I mean, I saw that there are sugar companies that make some tests and so on. I represent a big company that may design, manufacture train. So as you can imagine, train is very huge and complex way to approach. We still doing LCA, we still manage APDs and so on. And I'm wondering how it would be possible to manage a social LCA when you have to manage something like more than 100,000 per number for each train. So I'm wondering if you have some example of big company that is trying to work towards a social LCA, even because we are trying to implement even a circular economy approach. So things are developing so much. So I make my final question. There are any other companies that they are working with social LCA that could be compared with something like mine?
Yes, we have Aptar company, for example, that is a packaging, has different kind of packaging, is a multinational, and they start, for example, working, they are doing a pilot with Solca, social organization LCA. That could be first step, for example, but I can also give you a perspective. I had the opportunity to work for BMW Group. BMW Group is with us on board, but more on the mobility services they are doing. That's a way how they, for example, BMW does. So they can, of course, start to have transparency in the entire supply chain and all the products they produce. You start the other way around. So that's why you need a social hotspot. You make an hotspot, you define which could be your first product or your first materials that for you it's more important. It could be more important for you, so materiality for the company, or the ones where you think you can have a more hotspot. So thanks to the social hotspot database, you can even already have an overview knowing where it come from your materials. So you have a country there, you can have already first view of the hotspot, and then let's scale down and go in details, making social LCA more with the company involved and collecting primary data. that's step by step. You cannot start with everything. You start with the most important one in terms of materiality for you or in terms of hotspot. And then you build your database, you build your experience, and you build your transparency.
And last question. Last question is, following the guidelines, it is possible to try by ourselves, or we you suppose that we do need the support from an external consultant?
I mean, the way how we did the guidelines was to allow you to do. But of course, as I said, I mean, surely you can start following and you can start to collect, but there can be that for the complexity of your specific company, you need a support. But the idea was, and that's how it's produced, the guidelines to support even people that are not familiar with LCA. Catherine, do you want to add something?
My
just
final
say
question is.
Sorry,
I'm sorry, David, because we are at time now, but it really depends of the resources that you have internally in your company. I really invite you to follow up with Marzia and I and steering committee members. We'll be glad to help answer some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Please follow up with us. Write an email to us, and we will.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to quickly address the question of Laura about SA8000. What's the connection between social LCA and SA8000? SA8000 is a site certification. So it's a type of social audits that is verified, and it covers many of the labor rights subcategories, the worker subcategories that we would be interested into social LCA, but it covers only one site. So you would, depending of what type of a study that you would carry, you might need, several SA8000. I want to close the meeting by saying first, thank you so much to my fellow steering committee members. It's been a pleasure working with you and to go into that journey together. Thank you so much to the support of Lawrence and Laura from the Life Cycle Initiative, to all the advisors that provided their time and insights, all the participants, to the various discussions and public consultations that we have. So thank you so much. Hopefully you will also participate in the upcoming activities, be they be the trainings or the development of social product declarations. So we'll see you on the trail.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Thank you all the panelists as well. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Lydia. Bye.